Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday the 13th, 2019, September, obviously. But also we have a full moon. So for all of you out there who are listening to the broadcast, hopefully you're not in harm's way, of course. You're not outside, so you're just safe and sound at your home right now listening to the old Grand Solar Minimum. Anyway. So let's take a look at space weather news, but before we dive into the show, tonight I'm going to have Mari. She's going to help me out a little bit tonight on some of the discussion. A lot of the stuff Mari did her earlier broadcast and kind of caught us up to speed on some of the world news. So tonight we thought we would just read off some climate articles and kind of have some back and forth about this because we watched the Democratic debate last night, and not for the politics. I was really just listening to see what they were going to say about climate change. And it was interesting to me how they kept that very short. They only let 3 or 4 people talk about climate change, and then they moved on to something else. But we'll get into that here in a minute. First, our solar wind speeds coming in at 483.2 kilometers per second with a density of 1.3. We have 0 sunspots on our sun. You do see the coronal hole actually here on the SDO. Where's it at? Must be gone. Okay. So.
Are you looking for your arrow, Jake?
No, I'm looking for the SDO that was over here.
Oh, it should be over there still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. KP at 1 and 24-hour max is at a 3. Oh, there it is. And let's go ahead and take a closer look at our star, and you will see that coronal hole that is now Earth facing. That is the hole that they are saying we should see some solar wind stream from. Now, it's going to graze the magnetic field, so it's going to be very minor. It's not really going to affect too much. But we have seen those little coronal holes that kind of just buzz by the magnetic field. We have seen slight seismic activity increase with those as well. So keep our eyes on it right now. No G1 storms or anything like that. Just some increased solar wind. Let's take a look over at our space weather section here at thegrandsolarminimum.com. And I'll zoom in a little bit on that bad boy. Let's move it over. So we have a coronal hole forming on the eastern limb. And then we also have another coronal hole that looks like it could be developing near the negative 180 region as well. And as you noticed on that last pass there, we had a little bit of a bright region, could be active. Same thing on the eastern limb accompanying that particular coronal hole. So just by the location, I would have to say that this particular activity region would be a member of the solar cycle 24. So again, we are not expecting solar cycle 25 to begin until late or early, anywhere from early 2020 to mid 2020. All right, so let's take a look at a couple of our articles tonight. Mari brought this one to my attention actually a couple of nights ago, and we just didn't have it put up. But it says here that Seth Morgan is worried about Mount Hood. In the 1780s, the volcano rumbled to life with such force that it sent high-speed avalanches of hot rock, gas, and ash down its slopes. Those flows quickly melted the snow and ice mixed with meltwater to create violent slurries as thick as concrete that traveled huge distances. They destroyed everything in their path. Today, the volcano is prominent backdrop against Portland, Oregon, is eerily silent, but it won't stay that way. Mount Hood remains an active volcano, meaning that it will erupt again, and when it does, it could unleash mud flows not unlike those from Colombia's Nevado del Ruiz volcano in 1985. There, a mud flow entombed the town of Amaro, killing roughly 21,000 people in the dead of the night. Yeah, lots of doom in this one so far. On Mount Hood, any little thing that happens could have a big consequence, says Dr. Morgan. And yet the volcano is hardly monitored. If scientists miss early warning signs of an eruption, they may not know the volcano is about to blow until it's too late. Determined to avoid such tragedy, Dr. Morgan and his colleagues proposed installing new instruments on the flanks of Mount Hood in 2014. Those include 3 seismometers to measure earthquakes and 3 GPS instruments to chart ground deformation and 1 instrument to monitor gas emissions at 4 different locations on the mountain. But they quickly hit a major hiccup. The monitoring sites are in wilderness areas, meaning that the use of the land is tightly restricted. It took 5 years before the Forest Service granted the team approval in August. The approval is a promising step forward, but Dr. Morgan and his colleagues still face limitations, including potential legal action that may block their work. Such obstacles are a problem across the United States, where most volcanoes lack adequate monitoring. Although federal legislation passed in March could help improve monitoring of volcanoes like Mount Hood, scientists remain concerned that red tape could continue to leave them blind to the future eruptions with deadly consequences. So, Mari, I think we can agree about what triggers us on this, and that is that these environmentalists are blocking our scientists from monitoring something. And ironically, that volcano went off around the Dalton minimum, so
it's very worrying. And what really caught my eye about this particular article is we have volcanologists at the USGS, whether you like them or not, they're sharing this article like saying, hey, this is a concern. And every time someone mentions like the big super volcanoes out there that people love talking about, like Yellowstone, that I always tell them that volcano is so heavily monitored and there's so much research in regards to that volcano, and I've read it. I'm not concerned about that immediately. That volcano does not worry me the way that
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. Did I say something
No,
else?
no, I was.
I a volcano
off.
Okay. Well, wake up, Jake.
Okay.
It's Friday.
That's why you're helping me tonight. All right. It's been a long week.
It is. Like, I've been sick and I've been wearing on you too. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But anyway, Yellowstone, people worry about, and I always tell people, be worried about the ones no one's looking at. Be worried about the ones they aren't monitoring. This is a perfect example of that.
Not so much worry, but like, let's be more aware.
Yeah, pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention.
And just like I was explaining to people in a prior live stream a couple days ago about this, infrastructure issues and monitoring issues, these environmentalists don't really understand the impacts on society and nature in general. For the backwater floods, they're like wanted to be environmentalists, and they stopped the pumps from being put in, and the project was already 99% complete. So what happened, because the pumps weren't there and the extensive flooding that they got, all this wildlife either drowns or starves because they're trapped essentially in a big bowl of water. So not good. And we get why you want to preserve certain areas, but really, if you look at this monitoring equipment, let's be smart. Let's cut the red tape and make it happen.
Well, and it's,
for the sake of the people that live around this area, it has to be observed and studied, especially going into these times.
And not just for predicting it, but just for being aware and know what to do in case of an emergency. Now, if you're able to monitor this, the hope is that you don't have another tragedy like you did where 21,000 people were entombed in the middle of the night. These people died in their sleep. I mean, some say that's the best way to go. I get that. But at the same time, if there's a way to prevent loss of life during these events, if there is a way to prevent it, I'd like to have at least the tools out there to monitor, to give us the warning signs. Like, hey, look, we need to really consider evacuating. There's some activity around this area and this is concerning us. But like Mari said, the thing that caught her eye and mine as well is that USGS scientists are sharing this article. And it's not to scare anybody. Well, it may be just to be raised more awareness, but if anything, it's telling the world, hey, we need this monitoring equipment now. This is not a time in our lives that we should be fooling around with as far as, you know, casting a blind eye to an area that could erupt. The last time it erupted was near the adult minimum. So, yeah, that was supposed to be on a couple weeks or a few shows back, but unfortunately.
Could you also, Jake, play that video, maybe with the sound off, and I'll talk over it? The one you were just on.
There was a video?
You silly, silly man. Right here.
Oh.
So I just want to play this with the sound off.
All right.
So, as you guys know, we've gotten purple volcanic sunsets. The Rikoki volcano blasted into the stratosphere. Was it? Yeah, 3 months back. And we had a video sent to us by one of our supporters on Instagram. David from DMD Racing Fitness in California sent this spectacular footage of a volcanic sunset in California. Just check out the color in that sky.
You know, absolutely gorgeous, but at the same time frightening. That where was the location of this?
That was taken in California.
Yeah.
And we've been getting pictures of volcanic sunsets all over the world,
yep,
primarily in the northern hemisphere.
So, I mean, I wonder how mainstream's going to spin that when there's so many people on the internet showing these sunsets purple. How are the mainstream media going to avoid all the buzz about this? Because you're right, Mari, it's being seen all over the world.
Well, can you imagine if we have several of these volcanoes go off into the stratosphere, how purple it's going to be, how dark it'll be?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not far off from a year without a summer at that point. We're just waiting for that, unfortunately.
Fitting to kind of transition into this article, the media discrimination against cold weather. Western Europe and parts of North America experience above average temperatures regularly. Sure. Thanks to the mainstream media. Every increase in temperature is duly noted and reported to the masses, often with fear-mongering headlines like climate change blame for heat wave. However, the same media intentionally choose not to report the regular occurrence of cold weather events and below average temperatures. Earlier this month, even as the media spoke about a heat wave in Western Europe and Greenland, much of Russia and regions beyond were engulfed in a cold blast from the Arctic. At the same time, Australia is experiencing severe winter conditions because of a cold blast from Antarctica. Many towns were experiencing snow for the first time after decades. However, this historically significant cold is rarely portrayed as out of the ordinary. And really, guys, you only saw people talking about it on YouTube. I mean, probably the few channels that you all follow that cover this topic all did a report that mentioned the rare snows here. Rather, they are just explained as regular winter events, something that poses no challenge to the dominant warming hypothesis, and do not make it to the headlines of popular mainstream media. The bias in climate reporting does not do justice to the climate reality. Furthermore, the media blame major hot weather events on climate and seldom explain the actual their reasons for the occurrences. The heat wave in Europe was a weather event highly influenced by a wavy jet stream producing alternating weather conditions. The jet stream is the reason why the same places experience warm and cold conditions in the space of weeks. Western Europe experienced both heat waves from North Africa and cold blasts from the Arctic. In July, it is scheduled to experience cold and wet conditions in August too, with heat waves expected to return at the end of the month. The incorrect reporting and cherry picking in the media are not limited to the summer's wavy jets. I'm going to back up a little bit here, guys. You see this? I mean, they're talking about climate change and global warming, and Western Europe has both experienced heat waves from North Africa and cold blasts in July. I mean, Mari, you've been to Europe. Have you ever heard of a heat wave and a cold blast in the same month, in the middle of summer in the northern hemisphere?
No, I mean, none of this weather is typically normal, but this pattern with the wavy jet stream, that is to be expected. And I don't think people really understand it. It's this jet stream changing is a part of the Earth Sun connection, evolving and going through its cycle.
So this is why the jet stream is changing when you have solar wind speeds. Right now they're moderate at 483, but when you see them in the 300s and lower, that makes the magnetic field weaker. That makes the stream a little bit loose. When the solar winds are fierce, then the jet stream is tighter and it doesn't have these wavy patterns in it. So when you're talking about having, low solar wind for the majority of the time, you're going to have some extreme jet stream patterns, and we've seen that. So
this is something NASA acknowledges,
yeah,
and puts on their site and explains that even it happened in the modern or the Maunder minimum, and shows the cold anomaly maps and shows what these wavy jet streams do. This is a typical thing that happens with this pattern.
So this article raises the question, why does the media deliberately underreport cold weather events and exaggerate even a small warming event? The answer is obvious. The propaganda surrounding climate doomsday cannot be sustained without a manipulation of real-world information, deliberately making the public to believe that there are increasing numbers of warm events and fewer cold weather events. This tactic is becoming increasingly common as the nature climate system is not showing any signs of extreme warming, posing a serious challenge to climate alarmism. In the last 20 years, the global temperatures have shown no significant increase, a phenomenon sometimes called the global warming hiatus. I was trying to explain today to someone, a coworker. Hello, Jacob, if you're listening. Time to time he does. But we were talking about the global warming and the acceleration of the global warming in the past several years, and how can you say it's not man-made? What people don't understand, the acceleration of what little warmth that planet Earth did receive between 2012 and 2016, and that was where the extreme, that's where everybody's saying, oh, the last 5 years have been the hottest on record. Well, when you are dealing with the sun, and it does drive the climate, and when you hit your solar max, that is when the sun produces its most energy, the most warmth, there's more sunspots. And again, when you're coming down from a max, it's not just automatic, okay, everything gets real cold all of a sudden. It takes time to cool, just like it takes time to warm, all right? So from the solar max going into the solar minimum is showing that we are dropping in temperature for the global, and this is according to the data over at UAH. And so from 1979 to the present time, there is a little over 58.58 degrees Celsius separation from the temperature reading in 1979, when this first started, the satellite readings, till today. So when somebody tells me the acceleration, the rapid acceleration, I tell them, well, we had a very active maximum, I guess you could say. It wasn't as, actually, I take that back. Solar cycle 24's peak was not as high as you're supposed to be average between 180 and 220 sunspots during a maximum period. That's low. So we had 161, I believe, somewhere in that area during solar cycle 24. But still, it was during a warming trend in the solar cycle, and of course now we are in the decline of that. But so when you hear somebody tell you that the acceleration and how hot the planet has gotten, show them the Dr. Roy Spencer chart and show them that from 1979, where temperatures were measured around negative 0.3 something Celsius, we were sitting at 0.38 above baseline. That's merely only 55 to 60.60 degrees difference. So it's not even a full degree Celsius. In what? 79? That's 41 years? So we're going on 41 years of record now that the temperature has only jumped up 0.60 degrees Celsius at best. if you look at from start to where we are now. Yeah, we had an increase of a peak in 2016, 0.88 above baseline. But when you look at that chart, and since we're talking about it, I guess I could go find it for everybody since I'm talking about this. But this is the easiest way for me to explain to people when they talk about global warming. And then, of course, this gentleman brought up his Wikipedia site about the temperatures. And here's the problem with using anything Wikipedia or mainstream. The satellites that they use to measure these temperatures, okay? The satellites that they use are, and we already reported on this too, the ARS satellite, AIRS or something like that. But the problem with that satellite is that it does not give off an accurate temperature reading when there's cloud coverage. Hello? I mean, cloud coverage, we're what, 80% increase now? I mean, not increase, but I mean, you know what I mean. We have far more cloud coverage. And this is where we started in 79. Looks like negative 0.33 below baseline. And today we are at 0.38 degrees Celsius above baseline. And when you look at the overall trend, it's not that much. All right? Everybody just calm down. And if you look at the trend right now, and this is what I really wanted to show you guys, this trend. So 2016, I'll show you where the peak was during solar max. All right? The last solar max we had before that was right here. So again, I see what you're trying to say. We see this steady line of increase of these peaks. All right? But what we haven't seen after these peaks were anything to indicate everything's kind of up and down. This was on a steady decline, and then we get the peak in 98. 70s and 80s, we all know it was definitely a little bit colder in those winters. But now we are starting to see a trend of the temperatures on the down. Here we go, 17, and here's 19. So 2016, this was late 2017, and currently 2019. So where's this going? And right now, this line trend is showing that we're having a little uptick, but could it be dropping again? I say yes, and I'll show you why I think that when we look at our temperatures here at the end of the broadcast. So again, this article brings up a good point. People talk about global warming levels show no significant increase. Well, that's it. It doesn't. And you guys can check that out over at drroyspencer.com. We'll leave the link on our website. And so we've got two stories about flooding to talk about. And Mari brought this to my attention. So people are in denial according to FEMA. Yeah, move that over. I'm sorry. I had to move it because I couldn't see the thingy. Thanks, dear. Too many people are in denial. FEMA urges homeowners to buy flood insurance. So when I heard that headline, Mari, I thought to myself, that's because the claims are there's so many of the claims out there. They need new customers. They need new money.
I feel like it's like, oh my God, we have all these claims we have to fill. We need more customers to help pay for it. That's how I read that title.
That's what I was, yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
But can you blame them?
No, I mean
can you blame
their business.
They are trying to, and the reason why they're urging, and think about this too, this is not such a bad thing, I guess. FEMA is trying to help the government and taxpayers save money. If you have flood insurance, even if you don't think you're going to flood, if you have that flood insurance, you don't have to rely on the government to help you rebuild.
I know, but how long does that take to get? I just.
Well, you're right. And there's
then
so many circumstances, too, that you have to meet.
these are becoming flood zones, and we're going to be getting into that as well. It's like, I think they're starting to wake up and be like, we need to start changing things. And when we get into the next article, I think that'll makes more sense. But
So, this is cute. They're trying to try to feed everyone fresh warnings from UN scientists over rising sea levels and confirmation that the past year was the country's wettest year on record. So they're trying to say sea level rise is happening because we've had the wettest year on record. That would be false. And also, how many of you out there believe that we just need to get rid of the UN anyway? I mean, if they're going to come out here and make these claims when NOAA, a trusted, for some reason, weather source, man, you know what? I shouldn't give them so much flack. They know damn well if they were on the same page with us that they would lose all their federal grant money that funds their research. And a lot of people would lose a lot of money. And also, I wonder about this, Mari. You know, is it possible that people who really, let's just say that NOAA gets caught with some hard evidence that they were cooking the books, they were rising the temperatures to help fit the agenda, to help keep the research money flowing in. And I always wonder that as well. And that's why NOAA can't confirm or deny about solar cycles being involved in the climate prediction. But what's even better is that in the back of one of NOAA's sections of their website, when it talks about the impacts of climate or cosmic rays, and the first thing that article addresses to people is that the sun drives the climate, point blank. And then at the end of that article, it also states that if the cosmic ray theory is true, then it would have a substantial impact on the climate. So again, it's frustrating to see news reports where they're saying fresh warnings from the UN. Well, a lot of us, I think, are already on the same page. The UN's kind of, what?
I've called them out
Fake
several
news.
times on it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have NASA and NOAA, they flat out have charts that show that the sun is the primary driver of the climate. And sometimes you'll come across charts that have CO2 as the primary driver and then the sun second. I've seen that, but the sun is the main climate driver. And then you have the IPCC, which is a panel put together by climatologists, but there are no solar physicists on the panel. And apparently I've heard that that's changing, but even Valentina's like, there's no solar physicist report. Go through all the past IPCC reports and you will see that no true solar physicist was utilized. They're all climatologists. And I've stated this so many times before, nothing against climatologists, but it's I don't like the term or the role or anything because there are too many variables in our climate. Not one profession is going to be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. It takes so many different professions to sort of pinpoint exactly what's going on to our climate, different variables. We need. What are you looking at, Jake?
What is it flashing like that for?
I don't know.
So, not to interrupt you, Mari.
Well, you did.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just joking.
that's what I do.
I do that to you all the time, so it's all right.
And, you know, they reference South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, you know, that area. You know, we had Florence, we had Michael, and now this year we've had Dorian, and with more weather knocking on the door. Guys, I mean, look at this pattern. This is just over the next 2 weeks. I mean, we got low pressure systems all over the place. There's one dive bombing us from the middle of the Atlantic. Thankfully, it goes shifting up. I asked Mari, is Greenland going to get hit by a hurricane at some point? Watching the way these things are flowing up. So, what these storms, in my opinion, are going to be helped doing right now, if this forecast track is correct, these storms are just upwelling everywhere, and it's bringing cooler waters to the surface too. So let's hope that these storms, but this is crazy looking. Like, just watching the animation of this and seeing these storms, like, guys, take a look at what's going on here in the Atlantic. And maybe you'll agree that this is kind of weird. Like, this one right here just dive bombs out of nowhere. We're going to follow that up. But you got low pressure here, 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 here. I mean, there's one right there. That's the one we're watching invest. There's another hurricane right here that just comes out of nowhere. We got lots of action coming up through the Gulf, lots of moisture, possibly another system that'll move out here. So we got like 3 or 4 low pressure systems that could come close to affecting the United States all within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Everyone a seizure.
If
you keep this up, Jake, stop it.
Oh, I'm just trying to show everybody what's up, but, it looks weird. Sorry. This is how this is how we convince everybody that it's real. Like,
well,
I'll hypnotize them with the
oh God,
with the map. Al Gore is a liar. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not.
Am I throwing you off being your sidekick tonight, Jake?
I think so. I don't know.
But
this is okay.
It was interesting that you asked me to be the peanut gallery.
I wanted to do something a little different tonight. It's always the same old Jake
Are you
Riley.
worried people are getting sick of old Jake Riley?
I think that you're well appreciated, and
pass me my cup.
It's fair for you to be involved as well. And it's Friday night, Maybe I wanted some help, Mari.
Maybe it's gonna be Mari on Friday
How about
night.
you just refill me over here?
I'm dying. I'm still sick, so you guys can hear me coughing, and I apologize. Still on the mend, not 100%.
All right.
Yeah, shut up.
So.
I know everyone loves me, so I get away with it.
What is in the cough drops is what I want to know.
Ricola.
Call that a drink? I'm kidding. All right, so let's move along, shall we? FEMA's telling everybody to buy flood insurance. Canada's saying move. Canada tells flood victims it's time to move. The city of Gatineau, just across the river from Canada's capital of Ottawa, was inundated by a 100-year flood in 2017. Then this past April, the flooding was worse, which has prompted government to tell people who lost more than 50% of the value of their home to just leave. Canada has decided that the best thing for many people to do in the face of escalating costs from climate crisis by limiting funds for rebuilding and telling people to move. It has caused entire neighborhoods to be removed house by house, as the New York Times has reported. Canadians are stubbornly beginning to reconsider the wisdom of building near flood-prone areas, said Jason Thistlethwaite, a professor of environment and business at the University of Waterloo in Ontario. Canadians are so much more fun. I mean, that last name, Thistlethwaite, is that how Thistlethwaite? Jason Thistlethwaite of the University of Waterloo.
Thistlethwaite.
Anyway, after 2 floods in 3 years, many residents are not able to sell their home, and the government won't let them rebuild. I've lived through it 2 years ago. I'm living through it now. I don't want to go through this again, said Louise David in May, who put up $40,000 of work into her home after the 2017 floods, according to the CBC. David intended to walk away from her home in May, give me the money, and I'll run to the bank, buy a condo very high up. $250,000 in my pocket is better than zero in my pocket and having to live through this again. So some of these folks are actually up for the idea of moving. So you got United States, you got FEMA telling folks to buy more flood insurance. And people here in Canada are saying, nah, baby, nah, just go ahead and move on down the road.
Just shutting neighborhoods down.
Do you think this is this genuine?
Well,
or is it possible government intimate domain, or whatever you call it, where the government takes over the properties?
There's all different kinds of conspiracies and speculations you can bring to it. It could be a land grab. I don't know. But maybe they are smart enough to say, hey, our climate is changing, and we can't control the sun. Maybe they know. Maybe they know that we are in for some extreme weather, and if these people continue to live in a flood zone, this is going to be a repeating cycle year after year, because the weather is just going to get more relentless the deeper into the deep grand solar minimum we get. Maybe they are actually doing the right thing, the mature decision, and just saying these people are going to be going through this time after time, because this article references the United States and how some of these locations were hit by 3 different hurricanes year after year. Some of them have had their homes rebuilt, and I believe it was like some of them up to, was it 200,000? I don't remember, but one home over all these hurricanes and flood seasons has been rebuilt 5 times and restored 5 times from floods. When is it a point where, I mean, you wouldn't build a house on a swamp? I know it happens, but there has to be a time where you have to look at the movement of the land and how the infrastructure is and how the weather conditions are, and just say and be honest, this area is not going to support people in a safe manner.
I hope whatever it is, the intentions are pure and it's nothing to deceive Canadians, but this could be also, you could look at this as well, is this giving the green light for other people besides the government of countries to tell people where to move now?
Well, and then you have the whole agenda, whatever was it, Agenda 2031 or
Yeah,
something.
like
There's different versions of it, many different versions of it. And that is to move people all into more populous areas. That, I mean, there's a lot of speculation you can throw at it, but it's a pretty big deal when our climate is getting to the point where, just move that window over, where our climate is getting to the point where neighborhoods are being shut down.
So
I'm sort of on the fence. I think it's more of just a smart move, because they know it's coming.
I hope that, and like I said, I hope that's what's really going on here. That would be great to see a country actually being smart about it and say, look, hands down, these floods are getting worse, and we have scientists telling us that what the period of climate that we're going to be entering in the next 3 decades, we ain't seen nothing yet.
It's not safe anymore.
And not only that, but you said that there were people that had actually had damaged their homes 3 or 4 or even 5 times.
Yeah, and I mean, think about this. When you're building a new structure, they'll do ground tests and samples to see how stable the land is, if something needs to be done so there's not corrosion or whatever. Some places are not suitable, and it's very well possible some of these places where the infrastructure has been just overtaxed or just it's not cooperating with climate.
Right.
It's not capable of handling the sheer amount of precipitation. Essentially, what the infrastructure isn't there.
So another article to go, moving on from that, and that's a very good point too, Mari, but I wanted to bring this up as well: censorship, personal attacks, and deplatforming of skeptics. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up, because this is important that people know about stuff like this. Niels Axel Morner is the retired head of the Paleogeophysics and Geodynamics of Stockholm University, was a contributing author to the IPCC. When Morner tried to warn the IPCC that it was publishing false information that would be inevitably be discredited, he says they simply ignored him. So dismayed, he resigned in disgust in February of this year and decided to blow the whistle. Dr. Morner is the latest in a long line of former IPCC scientists and other government-funded institutions who have resigned after they could no longer be associated with organizations that deliberately falsify data to promote a political agenda and which are aimed squarely at provoking an emotional response from the public. And I'm going to stop right there. And here's a list actually of folks who have resigned from the IC or IPCC. So that last statement there, Judith Curry, we all know who that is. That last statement, though. Watching the presidential debate last night for the Democratic Party and hearing these folks talk about they're going to remove all carbon fossil fuels by 2030, that we're going to be relying only on solar and wind. One candidate, I think it was Booker, actually said that we need to be all nuclear, which, you know, that's a start, but most of these guys are, you know, there's always a catch-22 to each of them. Even if you kind of like their personality, they support things that you and I probably don't agree with. And one thing that the Democratic Party shares in common is climate change is man-made and that we can do something to stop it. But we can't. But last night, they described our climate situation as very scary, and if we don't do something about it, we are hurting our children. And it is our fault if our children die in the future because of man-made climate change. So that statement kind of sticks out. But moving on here, with the cold start to the year, the delayed crop planting, the record cold recorded across the world, and the lower than average summer temperature, it seems the effects of the solar minimum are starting to be seen. But you'd be hard pressed to see any of this reported in the mainstream media as if it doesn't fit with human-caused catastrophic warming. It's because it doesn't. If people knew this was all natural, it would upset them because maybe they bought a hybrid to protect the planet. Or maybe they put solar panels on their house, a $30,000 investment, because they thought they were helping their planet survive. Yeah, very upsetting to me if you ask me. Shortly after the YouTube video began, shared across social media such as Facebook, article-related notifications appeared under the post. A website called Climate Feedback said the independent fact-checkers had deemed that what Morner had said in the video was incorrect. They were effectively saying he was deliberately lying. The website article, here's the link on this as well. Both reviewers are alarmists. All the sources quoted are either other alarmists or the IPCC. The key part of the article is as follows. Scientists have established that observed climate change and sea level rise are clearly caused by human activities, primarily the emission of carbon dioxide through burning of fossil fuels. Solar activity cannot explain the recent warming. Bull. The recent warming was from a peak in temperatures during our last solar max. Okay, there you go. There's your explanation. Look it up. Look at the data. Look at the correlation. How can you not say that solar output doesn't have anything to do with warming?
Oh, Jake, don't get me started on these fact checkers. You guys hear about the woes we have on YouTube. Who is checking the fact checkers that Facebook uses?
Oh, God.
I have several violations on my account, on our webpage, our Grand Solar Minimum Facebook page, and it's all because we share an alternate view to AGW, alarmism. And it's very clear if you background check these fact checkers, they're all alarmists. So it's insane. There's no non-bias. You're just, if you're not a part of this liberal agenda, goodbye, filter out. And what happens is when you're pegged by these fact checkers, your account and your sites, what happens is in the algorithms, you get buried. And you also will get paired with, like, if your article is listed in the news feed, right above it and below it, they will put global warming articles above and below. And basically, flag you as false.
And talking about how these people make these fear-based claims to jolt people's attention.
Oh, boy.
Here's another model actress. I've never heard of her, but apparently she's somebody somewhere. Model actress Cara Delevingne. Is that what that is?
I don't pay attention to celebrities. I have no idea who she is.
Vigine or Vintage?
I would say...
Vigine.
Let's go French and say, like, Delevision.
Television.
I have no idea. Let's
Quoted
just
in
call her
Variety, wide range climate change feature published on Tuesday, in which she said the world will end if governments don't do something about the looming environmental crisis. Yeah. All the little things we do, recycling, are obviously important, but there isn't anything that one person can do until policy changes. If the governments don't do anything, the world will end. No joke, she said. No joke. I mean, why are they asking people like her? Where is her background? I don't know. You could say the same about me. Jake, where's your climatology and your meteorology? But, you know, I follow news. I have common sense. I use logic.
Well, you research.
You know, I do my homework.
How many hours
This
of
girl,
research has she put into actual climate scientists or science?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's these people make these vague, generalized statements that the puppet masters want them to say, and they have no idea what they're talking about.
But this is my point. Instead of doing the research like we do, it's easier just to listen to these actresses, musicians, politicians, actors, these celebrities who don't really have any idea what's happening to the climate. And people buy it because there's so many people that just follow the flow. They don't do their own thinking. They don't do their own research. And I hate to be mean about it, but it almost feels like there's a lot of lazy people out there who would rather just take her word for it instead of maybe doing a few searches on a couple of things and looking at websites like thegrandsolarminimum.com, where we try to be a resource of information about what we know about sunspots and its impact on climate. Peer-reviewed papers everywhere about this, but yet let's listen to the bimbo actress who knows nothing about climate whatsoever. So,
well, people tend to idolize these stars now more so than ever. They have a lot of interaction with their fans on social media. The internet has sort of evolved that, and people get starstruck, and it's just whatever you feed them is yes, they will agree to. That's just the USGS.
Yeah, that was what we were covering earlier, but Mari wanted, this is where USGS was, I mean, look, we weren't just BSing you guys. I mean, the USGS was legit sharing this, tweeting it. So, I wanted to put that there. Thanks, Mari. Did a good job tonight. All right, there's that thunderstorm cluster we saw earlier today. It's finally moving to the east, heading through northern Ohio. Cleveland, watch out. You're about to get rocked. Some severe weather just past the Sandusky area near Ohio. Well, let's get into the teeth of it, right? Let's check out the tropics, because that's kind of like the big deal right now. We're watching a couple of things, and this is encouraging, actually. This track has changed since this morning. Good news is that this tropical depression and possible tropical storm will be away from the Bahamas by the time it develops. But NOAA is saying by 2 p.m. on Wednesday, this thing could be a Category 2 hurricane. Interesting. Let's take a look at NOAA and the 3 storms. Wow, look at this. I mean, it is September. It's peak season, folks. So we've got to watch. A lot going on. 30% chance of this system developing in the next 5 days. And then the one right behind it is this orange cone. They're talking about a 50% chance. And then again, another section here about 20% right below it. And there is Tropical Depression number 9. Winds of 30 miles per hour, a pressure of 1,008 millibars, moving 8 miles an hour, going northwest. So right now the track is heading towards this area. Again, cleanup has barely begun in this region. Taking a look at our watches and warning advisories. And as you can see, we are under multiple tropical storm warnings now for the entire East Coast, from Florida all the way up to southern North Carolina at the time being. And you can see where the boxes are extended out to the Atlantic. That's a good sign too that we will probably see this storm more than likely go off to sea and not impact at this time. Now we've seen these models change. But even all the forecast models are now starting to agree that this particular storm is not going to be as close to the coast as we once thought, and that's okay. Especially the Bahamas, we definitely do not need. They're trying to clean up right now, and the last thing they need is heavy downpours and hurricane force winds. Thankfully, it's just a tropical depression right now at the time. So let's take a look at GFS real quick and see what GFS has to say about this. This is the latest run. Actually, might regret doing this, but I definitely regretted doing that. So we take a look at our forecast. Let's get this scrolled up so everybody can see. Everybody join us here. All right, here we go. That's still not good. Can I zoom this out a little bit? That's all the way zoomed out. Mara, would you do me a favor?
Oh, actually, I have a new frame for you, Jake. Look. I made this little, where is that? Browser, just plain.
Okay.
With no banner. Is that better?
That's probably a little easier to work around here. Okay.
Actually, here.
Yeah, that's fine.
I could do one more thing to help, I think. Maybe not.
No, that's fine. That's good.
The answer is no.
That's good. All right, so looking at the tropical tidbits, this is September 14th, Tropical Storm 9. Guys, you can see it right there by Florida on the East Coast, moving towards Jacksonville, not quite making landfall at all in Florida, according to this model run. Tropical Storm 9 begins to peel away. It does look like it could be a hurricane at this point, but interesting motion that GFS has this storm. It does eventually go north, but it does stay way far away from the coast. But watch out, here comes another storm right behind it, and that thing doesn't even come close to the Bahamas. It goes straight north into the northeast. Now, this was the storm that a lot of us thought it could hit New York, it could hit New Jersey. There's still plenty of time because that's September 27th when that storm makes its approach to that region. And I know you're saying, well, it's nowhere close to the States. It's not. That's if the track stays where it's at now. We all know that things happen and change pretty quick. So that low pressure system is off to sea, and just lots of moisture coming into the south from the Gulf here towards the end of the month, 27th of September, Saturday. And yeah, we're seeing snow showers in Colorado and Wyoming as well at that time. But here's something interesting. GFS is trying to show there is a disturbance just outside the East Coast here, not too far from New York City. We'll have to keep our eyes and see if there's any more development. So does it mean that we're out of the woods because this forecast model shows us that it's not quite making it to the States? Well, let's find out. The 12 model also agrees that this storm eventually takes a right turn and heads out to the Atlantic. The second storm following it is going to make the same track. So the 18 and 12 definitely agree. One more down here before we get to the worst case scenario, which is the 0-0. The 6, which was the only model showing it last night, I believe. And again, it agrees. This storm is going to barely impact the East Coast, move out to sea a hard right. Same with the storm behind it. Colder air moving across the northeast. That still holds up there, Thor. Watch out, buddy. Might be getting some snow showers by September 29th. How about that? September snow, eh? Well, you're not quite Canada, so, but you know, I still love you, buddy. And let's go to the 00Z forecast. Always the doomy one. But sometimes the doomy one doesn't show. Again, that storm raking the coast, the East Coast, all the way up to South Carolina. And this one is a little different, but it does show it just pretty much all together, just disintegrating. So the 00 shows the track of that second hurricane. All right, so the worst case scenario, that second storm, this is the only model that doesn't agree with this storm taking a beeline out to the middle of the Atlantic. It has this storm coming up, like we reported earlier. This is the only model showing it, but earlier we had a model that showed a storm that was moving through the opposite side of the Bahamas that didn't get damaged as bad This storm here, 977 millibar, talking about category 1 storm, nothing too crazy, but still, they don't need a storm over there. And the 00 model has this storm making another landfall around North Carolina, which was also what we saw a couple days ago. And this thing connects with another low pressure system. So basically, this storm is still holding its actual thought from the first time we showed you this video, what, about a week or so, titled, "If you think what we just had was bad, just wait." Well, this was the just wait storm. And the reason why we're saying that is because this one could cause widespread flooding up and down the East Coast. But again, this is the worst case scenario, all right? Going through the Keys, Miami might get kissed, but the Bahamas definitely will get hit again according to this model here. And then the East Coast gets raked, landfall around middle of North Carolina, scraping the West Virginia and Virginia coasts, Philly, New Jersey, New York City is going to get on this action. Could see some flooding and just heavy amounts of rain in Maine as this storm finally makes its way out right behind a cold front. Now, the 00 is the only one that doesn't show it as intense as the other two models, as we've seen snowfall happening in Canada just above us. So let's go back to the 18Z real quick. And let's cover what we're going to see in the lower 48. Not bad all the way through Tuesday, September 18th. More rain across the Midwest and the northern Great Lakes, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. You're going to get another round of showers and storms, but nothing too crazy. So we're pretty dry here, actually, through Friday, September 20th. Just scattered rain showers across the United States. And the moisture kind of starts to pick up a little bit on the 21st. That's next weekend. Decent sized low pressure system in the northern plains, bringing some snow showers to Wyoming and Montana. Some more possibility of severe weather also that weekend in Iowa and parts of Kansas as well. Showers and thunderstorms get a little bit more on the increased side towards the end of this month. So that might help cool the temperatures down a little bit too. And as we see here towards the end, high pressure is trying to invade the United States. There's a low pressure system that comes in from the Gulf on the 27th. So actually, we've got some pretty favorable weather to deal with. A couple of large systems moving through in time to time, but nothing to where it should be, catastrophic. And right now, if these 18Z models hold up, we're not going to have to worry about either storm making any kind of landfall, because these models here are all in agreeing that these storms are not going to hit the coast. They're not going to have that big of an impact like we once thought. So that is definitely some good news when it comes to these storms. Now let's check out our temperature outlook, the fun part of the show. Here we are on the 14th. That's tomorrow. Beautiful day across most of the United States. The really hot stuff is staying to the south. Parts of the Midwest and the northern plains in Northeast, gorgeous weather. Same in the Northwest, parts of Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico as well. Enjoying some nice warm weather, but nothing too crazy. The Southwest is super hot, and the South is also super hot. Other than that, normal September weather through the middle of September, right? And then we get closer towards the 20th of September. That heat still trying to stick around. And it's hanging on in the south. Summer is still around, that's definitely for sure. But now we start to see some cooling around the 21st, 22nd of September in parts of the Northwest first. Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. Look at that, daytime highs in parts of the Northwest in the 30s and 40s on September 22nd. Higher elevations are probably going to be below freezing. And summer is hanging on as long as it can through 22nd, 23rd. And then you guys can see that contrast of cold air pushing this warmer air to the south. We have already seen this. But this GFS is confirming that we will see cooler fall-like temperatures towards the end of the month, 25th, 26th. And look at that. By the 27th, you got this very southwest corner of the United States and southern Florida in the 90s, but the rest of the United States is definitely heading into fall-like weather, so we're right on schedule, right? The only bad thing about that being right on schedule with the cooler weather and the cooler temperatures is the crops that were planted late and where the maturity is at that point. Lots of 40s and 50s, guys, for highs towards the end of the month. I was talking to our friend Matt in Nebraska before we started the show. What's up?
Matt says never pee on an electric fence. He's in the chat advising people right now. Funny you mention him, Jake.
Well, it's great that he's giving great advice right now. Thanks, Matt.
Oh, we love you, Matt.
No, but seriously, I was talking to Matt before the show because I spoke to a local farmer talking about an early freeze, and he was telling me about how the frost will help dry out the crop. And as long as we get past the black layer, what Matt was telling me, after that, people are actually, they want the first freeze to happen as soon as they get to that black layer. And the black layer of corn is basically that you'll see like a black matter at the bottom of the corn kernel. And this is checked sometimes weekly, if not a little bit more frequently. But as long as the corn gets to that black layer stage, the frost is actually invited. The freeze is invited. It helps dry the corn out. And even if the frost or the freeze happens early this year, it just means the kernel is going to shrink up and it's going to affect the yield. What I'm trying to say is that, yes, it'll still hurt the farming community, and it still could put a dent in food production as well. And what's concerning is that we've been talking about this for 3 years, and each year we keep telling you that it's going to continue to get worse. It's not going to get better anytime soon. So how many more years of this before we start to see an impact on prices in grocery stores? Now, we're already being told that price hikes are coming this fall. And from what I've seen, they're here now. We just don't realize it because a lot of us don't go out to eat all the time and spend money at restaurants. But I noticed today, my boss took me to lunch at Wendy's. I had a burger. It was bacon and jalapenos on it, medium fry, and a drink. And he had like a chicken sandwich, jalapenos and cheese and fries and a drink. I thought I was being a cheap date, basically, for my boss today. But that total was $22. $22 to eat fast food at a Wendy's. So that's the first indication. We're seeing what used to be the fast food joints were fast, easy, and cheap.
It used to be about $5 for like a combo meal.
Now
you're easily paying $10.
Yeah,
easily.
So it's like you might as well go and sit at a diner like Denny's or something like that, eat your meals instead of going and eating this crap at these fast food restaurants. And it is crap. But anyway, my point is that I think we're starting to see the slight increases on food prices in grocery stores and in restaurants alike. I know a few folks like to go out to eat on the weekends every once in a while and take the family out. I'm sure if it's a monthly thing, the bill keeps getting a little bit bigger each month you go out, and it's the same people that are going out. So that's another sign too that maybe some of these restaurants are now experiencing higher cost in their produce. I remember my brother telling me about a year ago that the restaurant that he works for, he's a kitchen manager at, their case of lettuce, the head lettuce, was increased to $15 that year. And this was before the major floods that we've had in the Midwest. So I'm curious to hear what the increase of those cases are today. All right, that's pretty much all I have for tonight. Mari, did you have anything you'd like to kind of add in there before we...
Sure, absolutely, Jake.
Say hello to everybody.
I don't know how to shut my mouth really very well.
El No, by the way, is... Look at this.
Look at you doing that to me, Jake. Everyone's hearing you do it as well.
I'm sorry. I didn't know we were in a La Nina.
Darn it.
Go ahead.
All right. I want to thank Keen Tribe for your super chat. Thank you very much for supporting our channel. I want to discuss our call-in show for the Patreons. We'll be posting that right direct on Patreon, the link with the call-in number and everything. It's our first time, so it'll give us a chance to beta test it, and I'm excited. The reason why we are opening it to Patreon is I'm worried about going on a public forum with trolling and calling. We have to pay per minute for the phone calls, so I just want to keep it safe and structured, and just for the first few times, it may be something, the more support we get on Patreon, it may be something I'm more comfortable opening to a broader platform, but at this time, I just think it would be great to give our Patreons an opportunity to just call in and chat about what they're doing, what their thoughts are on the topic, weather in their area, prepping, gardening, nutritional tips, anything. I just think it is a great format to have. So please, if you're a Patreon, join us. I'm going to be altering the time zones so people in different time zones can join. We're not going to favor one particular time zone over another. And I would really like to show off my t-shirt, Jake, of if you want to put your little logo thingy on, and I just pull up my t-shirt in the community tab.
Definitely.
Can you type in YouTube or something like there for me?
Absolutely.
While he's doing that, bear with me because, you know, my coughs and throat. I got some. They were enjoying talking about safety in the chat, like the whole electric fence issue. And Tammy suggested no tongues on frozen poles from the Christmas Story. We're approaching that season now. Can you believe it, people?
Oh, yeah.
I can't.
We almost forgot that the full moon tonight, the harvest moon.
Also, yes, Tammy said that there's some conspiracy about the harvest moon now. It's a micro moon, which means the moon is at its farthest from the Earth in its orbit. So
that's why it's 14% smaller, right?
Is that a conspiracy?
Somebody made a comment today on WTF Sky in the chat saying, I was talking about the full moon tonight. They just wanted to let me know, oh, it's 14% smaller, but yeah, good show. And maybe that's why it's 14% smaller, because it's furthest away from
really
Earth.
I just didn't realize. Maybe I'll look in the chat. Hold on here. See, I didn't hear of a conspiracy. I don't know. Are you gonna pull it up, Jake?
That's what I'm doing.
You're
Murray.
awesome.
All right, let's have everybody take a look at this bad boy here. So this is the newest of the shirt. Mari did a wonderful job, I think. Got AOC with the gas mask on. The cow is.
I'm gonna pull up the actual close up so you can see the great detail.
What's great about it is that the cow's farting, and so is AOC. So here is the hard work that's
like that's actually on the shirt.
The
like,
crazy eye.
It's definitely
looks like
her. And I know a few people in the chat were like sort of brainstorming ideas what they wanted to see, and it's not an exact hose hooked up to her, but she is wearing a gas mask, and there is a rather large amount of cow and Democratic flatulence on it. So anyway, you ask and you shall receive.
AOC.
So I'm happy about that. It just
is
you
crazy.
Have to have a laugh every time. You know, I don't care
I'd
if
wear
you
it.
buy the shirt or not. It is hysterical.
I'd
to
wear
me.
it.
I mean, maybe it's my sense of humor or
Nope,
whatever.
I'd
I'm
wear
hoping other people.
I've shown a few of my friends
have
too.
A laugh about it.
I think they want it, so I've shown friends. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you all for tuning in to the Friday night Grand Solar Minimum News update. Tomorrow night, we're doing a live call-in at 8 p.m. That's when the show will start. And until next time, folks, I'm sure you'll see us around this weekend. If anything is news breaking, we will be there. Until next time, we will talk soon. Take care, guys.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.